Welcome everyone. Thank you for being and watching and being here with us. Today we share another important information that something that happened in the BSCF and something that it's maybe informative, right? Interesting for everyone to know what is happening and why. And one of the activities that BSCF is doing towards the government and towards the legislation and where it could help, right, with their knowledge and expertise from the sector and the industry. So I'm here with Gabriel Galgóci, that is our chairman, Peter Rusinak, our coordinator, BSCF coordinator, and Michal Krcmery, that is director of government affairs in AmCham Slovakia. And in this case, I would like to know perhaps from Gabriel as a start, right? So BSCF started sending some recommendation to the Minister of Economy about how to handle in a better way the crisis from the BSC industry, right? So what is in this recommendation and why the recommendation were needed? Let's start from there.
Well, thanks very much, Lela, and thanks to my fellow colleagues for being with us today. After first couple of days when we all had heads full to rearrange the work, send our employees home and recover the business, we get together as leaders of the BSCF companies and we start talking about what is really required for the companies to really survive. And we really try to really understand what is the immediate need, meaning what the companies are expecting from government, from municipalities, and from each other in the next couple of days, weeks. And then obviously we also ask them whether they can really look into the future and see how this really situation, the COVID crisis really changed the business service center forum industry in general. And as a result of that, we really put together some recommendation, view of general managers or CEO of the companies operating shared service center in Slovakia, and broke it into three categories, right? So there are some urgent needs or requirements when it comes to labor legislation. There are some urgent needs which are coming from the financial or operational cost perspective, and there are some long-term recommendation which would really help the business in shared service center not only be stable but also really going forward. So when it comes to labor legislation, I would like to ask my colleague Peter to recover a couple of them, and then we'll go through the financial, if you don't mind. So Peter.
Yeah, thanks so much, Gabriel. Yeah, well, just bringing into consideration a couple of things that we find as the most important one amongst the labor-related measures that were proposed. I just want to highlight that everybody is more than welcome to check the full length and the full list of our recommendations towards the government on BSCF webpage and also our social media channels. Those couple of points that we find the most important one amongst the labor-related suggestions is to clearly define the home office institute in our labor code. So far, the home office as such has not been clearly defined in the labor code, apart from what we in Slovak call a domestic work or telework. But home office, as we know it today, that is widely used by majority of Slovaks, has not been clearly defined in the labor code, including the responsibility for ensuring health and safety measures by each individual. So we believe that it's not possible from the employer's perspective to ensure everybody's individual workplace from health and safety point of view. So it would be very useful for the recovery of the economy to ensure that everybody individually, every employee is responsible for home office and health and safety measures. The other thing that we find very very useful how to bring more ease to the recovery is to ensure that the public offices would accept electronic signatures and electronic communication between offices and between suppliers and customers. I mean, a lot of BSCF member companies have been used to working quite operationally, but still, it was always needed to print out all the contracts, invoices, suppliers contracts, etc., etc. So it would be very helpful to eradicate the necessity to provide wet signatures on invoices, replace it with e-invoicing systems, and avoid signing working contracts, etc., etc. This would definitely help. This would definitely help the process to be smoother.
Well, just continue on what Peter said, and I mentioned at the beginning, there are some immediate requirements right after the business is stable, and thanks God, not touching wood, the business service center sector in Slovakia is stable and operates. At least this is the feedback from the CEOs. But the next step in a legislative recommendation is we have quite a significant number of colleagues who are coming from outside of the European Union. And these fellow colleagues, according to the current legislation, need labor and residency permit. Given the fact that the foreign police is in a very restricted regime, and obviously they do not accept any new contracts or new requests for extension, or even for colleagues coming who've been interviewed and who would like to get a job in Slovakia. One of the recommendation is that the foreign police extend automatically labor and residency permit for those who will be expiring in next several months, just because it's not really in the nature of, or it's a humanly not possible to deliver that extension request. The reason for that is that we would like to maintain current business, right? So we don't want our fellow colleague from outside of the European Union, it could be Latin America, it could be Middle East, it could be Asia or Africa, that we would need to somehow terminate their contract and really send them home without being paid, right? So basically that also really helped to sustain the business, and which is somehow really still in place, but probably with I would say expansion of the coronavirus. We have a couple of colleagues who are working in Slovakia, Bratislava especially, and who are living across the border, right? So Hungary or Austria. So basically, we would like to be sure that these colleagues can commute to work if necessary, or they can work from their respective countries without really exposing companies operating in Slovakia into tax or some compliance non-compliance activities, right? So basically, this new situation will require some flexibility, not only at the country level, but also really a bilateral agreement between Slovakia and Austria, Slovakia and Hungary, and perhaps even Czech Republic if necessary. So when it comes to financial recommendation, Peter, what we put there?
Well, one of the very useful suggestions that we find might be helpful is the so-called concurrence of the home office and of taking care after children or sick members of the family. So far this has not been possible due to the legislation. So we as a sector, we also support the idea of concurring these two institutes, and it would simply mean that BSCF member companies would not have to lay off their employees if the situation is getting worse and worse over the extent of time. But this is one of the tools that we propose how to support how to preserve the level of employment from the long-term perspective. But also it's a very, very immediate tool that might help preserve the level of employment in our sector, despite the fact that, as Gabriel is saying, measures or severe measures as severe measures as laying off has not been in place in our sector so far. And another important point is that we believe that supporting individuals' cash flow or supporting individuals' employees' budget is very important for preserving the stability of the sector. That's why we are proposing deferment of levies and deferment of payments of social security and health contributions to social security. Sociálna poisťovňa, So and health insurance companies until the end of June. We believe this might be helpful to preserve cash flow of our employees and help them recover once the crisis will be over.
One of the financial recommendation is, and this is probably more long term or medium mid and long term recommendation. Our neighboring countries, specifically Austria, introduce a special tax or a requirement that if anybody works from home in Austria, has to pay or has to divide the taxes between Slovakia and Austria. This is a significant administrative overhead for employers, and given current situation that people cannot really commute and the borders are closed, most of the businesses or most of the citizens living in Austria will permanently work from there, right? So basically what we expect or what we recommended to Ministry of Economy is to restart the discussion and convince Austrian government that just because people live there and they pay property taxes and anything which is related to their homes and anything they own in Austria, the income tax and everything should really be paid in Slovakia, because this is where they spend majority of the time and this is where they really work majority of the hours. Just because of this specific situation, it would be very difficult and it would be in fact impactful to companies as well as to country budget when this will continue, right? So as you can see, most of these things are in motion. Those of you who are listening to media and really follow government as well as crisis team, most of these things are being already discussed. Most of these things are being somehow in place. And we believe that AmCham will be, or Business Service Center Forum of American Chamber of Commerce will be able to really negotiate or discuss it further with the Ministry of Economy, with the Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Labor, and further on maybe also with Ministry of Education if necessary. So from Business Service Center Forum, we'll continue monitor this and we'll continually somehow be, I would say, relevant partner in a dialogue with the government.
Just to add to the last point, if I may add, it's important to say that AmCham has partnered with the Austrian Chamber of Commerce, German Chamber of Commerce, and Slovak Chamber of Tax Advisors, and prepared a position paper on how to eliminate this double taxation burden with regards to people who live or reside in Austria and are forced to pay taxes both in Austria and in Slovakia. So besides addressing the Ministry of Economy, we also partner with other associations, and we'll be trying to communicate with Austrian authorities through our partners from the Slovak Austrian Chamber of Commerce as well.
So basically, Lala, this is what we really put together, as Peter mentioned, and we are really thankful that the sector is working and is operational to a big extent. Our fellow members are in contact with us. We are communicating with them on very intensive basis, and so far not any of them really communicated issues with employment, obviously, but we need to make sure that this continues, right? And that's why the recommendation are on the table. And depends how long this entire crisis will go. Probably there will be further updates to our recommendation. We all hope that it will be soon over and we'll go to normal.
And what is what would be the response hoped from your side? Like, what will you expect? What would be the best scenario from your side?
Well, I think that if you look at the glass half full rather than half empty, the crisis accelerated a lot of things. Hopefully, this recommendation when it comes to electronic communication, accepting electronic signature, obviously introducing home office regime into the labor legislation, and all of these things hopefully will really be for the benefit of the a modern digital economy, right? Slovakia is one of the countries which hopefully understand and should really understand that there is a need to introduce IT technologies to digitalize content, to really, bring country to the next level. We believe that all sectors are really important for the country, but as it's shown during today's crisis, business service centers are really operating without really significant issues. We've been really able to quickly adapt to current situation. So my personal view is that this will help to really recognize the sector and strength of the sector and contribution of the sector to the government budget and to the government as such. Maybe just a wish. We heard on one of the conference before this all started from Ms. Leta Shiova from Ministry of Economy that they are currently thinking, as probably mentioned before, they're currently thinking to create a shared service center for the government itself, right? So for all the ministries. So we hope that we will be able to consult and share our best practice, knowledge, and really even tell government how to run the shared service center at the government level. So from the time perspective, I hope, or I would like to hope that by end of April things will get back to normal. The restriction will start relaxing. We will see less and less infected or impacted people, and hopefully we will then really get everything to the norm as it was before. Even question is whether it will be possible. It will be still in people's mind, and I hope people will then enjoy summer at least to the level they can enjoy it.
Oh yeah. Oh, thank you everyone for sharing. I don't know, Peter, Michal, anything we are still have to say?
Sure, maybe just a few more points. For AmCham as such, the Business Service Center Forum is very important initiative, very important platform. BSCF members employ about 1/3 of overall amount of people that AmCham, the whole chamber members represent. So we try to look at the needs of the BSCF as some of our top priorities. And just a few days before reaching out to the Ministry of Economy with specific recommendations on the industry, we also reached out to all the relevant new ministers on the very first day they took office, especially Minister of Labor, Minister of Education, and other ministers. We reached out with a letter offering our cooperation, offering our expertise, as we believe that things that not just the BSCF but AmCham members as such have been promoting and proposing, especially in terms of education reform, more flexible labor code, are things that would be very relevant, especially after the COVID crisis passes over. And we want to make sure that we improve our relationship with these key ministries. So obviously, while we understand that this might not be the top priority these days, we try to make sure that we're one of the first ones who are in touch with them, and we offer a helping hand and a mutual partnership that can result in the long term in more specific measures that will benefit all the shared service sector.
Peter?
Just adding and bringing more positive energy for everybody, as we will definitely manage, as staying together, we will manage to be stronger after the crisis. So given the fact that shared services are very important to the whole of AmCham membership, we believe that also it equally as important it is to cope with the current challenges. We also think about the times to come once the crisis will be over. And as you might have had the chance to hear during this interview, we are also considering the measures to be implemented in order to speed up the recovery once the crisis will be over, because this is equally important as the ability of shared services to cope with the current challenges.
So fingers crossed that requests are welcomed, and there will be some some action from that. If you would like to know more or read the request more in detail, I would add them here in the post. Thank you for watching. Thank you for commenting or asking any additional question you might have. and see you with the next live. I hope this was informative to all of you. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here and sharing it with us.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye.